NFL because Yates is here and his mock draft is up. Mock 2.0, and Yates has 4 quarterbacks in the top 5 picks. He has Minnesota trading up for J.J. McCarthy. He also has 3 wide receivers in the top 10, and he has the Jets taking tight end Brock Bowers, which, frankly, if that happens, I may have to excuse myself from the set. That is exactly what they should not do. But let's not get ourselves sidetracked with that right now. Yates, let's go. Let's start right at the very top. I have so many people, including the gentleman seated to my right now, and Dan Orlovsky and so many others, who have changed their minds or come to the conclusion that Jayden Daniels is the best quarterback prospect in this draft. Why do you still have Caleb Williams at number 1?
Because the Bears are taking him, Greeny, right? I mean, there are very few things, maybe just one thing in the entire 2024 NFL draft that feel like they are a formality at this point. But the only thing that is the Chicago Bears taking Caleb Williams. We've gotten to the point where both Bears GM Ryan Poles and head coach Matt Eberflus have discussed Caleb's strengths publicly, not the kind of thing you do when you are not planning on taking that player. And while, I'm a huge fan of Jayden Daniels, as a matter of fact, the grades between he and Caleb Williams are so slim that they're the top 2 players overall on my board, regardless of position. At this point, it feels like the Bears have kind of cast their die. It is going to be Caleb Williams going to Chicago, and if I felt like there was a chance that Jayden Daniels could still make his way to the Bears at number 1, I would have considered it. But I do feel as though at this point, the NFL draft sort of begins with pick 2, with the Washington Commanders currently scheduled to make that selection.
Kmart, that seems to go in place with what you were telling me this morning. You hear from everyone you talk to.
I even hit up GMs and execs and say, is there any chance that Washington somehow ends round 1 with Caleb Williams? And they're like, no. Like, he's going to Chicago. And I say, that'd be interesting. Wouldn't it be great if we woke up in a world where, like, Caleb was reunited with, like, Cliff Kingsbury and the DC kid comes home? But anytime I try to put that out there, people put that fire out very quickly. Jayden Daniels is the name that I hear most often connected to Washington. J.J. McCarthy is a guy right there in that number 3 spot that I hear a lot of teams be interested in him. So I'm fascinated because I'm covering the Commanders.
All right. So, Louis, 3 weeks from tomorrow night, you and I will be sitting there in Detroit when these decisions get made. And the Caleb Williams of it all, it just continues to feel like, I get it. I mean, Kmart and Field, I don't disagree with what they're saying. Sure. That certainly is what the consensus seems to be.
Yep.
However, there just doesn't feel like everything has checked itself out yet. Caleb versus Jayden, among other things, I know you believe that Jayden is, maybe even by just this much, the superior prospect.
Yeah, look, I think you have to take a 360-degree approach when you're looking at these guys, right? So you have to evaluate both what they do on the field and the feelings that you get from them personally off the field, and the feeling that you get when you talk to other people about how they conduct themselves off the field from a leadership, preparation, how he gets on with his teammates, all of that. So when you're able to get up close and personal with these 2 guys, and look, I was able to get up and close and personal and interview both of them, and I love them both. I'll tell you what, look, Caleb Williams, when I met him, look, you hear all the stuff that you read, right, about him, about maybe he doesn't want to go to Chicago, maybe his family's going to be, work in some way a negative in his career. I don't believe any of that. And I believe that this guy is absolutely committed to being great. I really do. Jayden Daniels, when I stood next to him, it was very similar to how I felt when I was next to C.J. Stroud last year. This is a guy who has a commanding presence. He has a presence that people want to be around. His teammates flock to him. He's authentically, real about who he is. He's not a very loud, boisterous individual, and so he didn't, during his pro day, try to act like something that he wasn't. The things that you're seeing here on these clips are naturally who he is. And he was with his guys nonstop, and it was just a nice, flowing type of relationship that he had with them. And when you watch him throw, okay, you stand behind him, you stand 2 feet from him, and you listen to the ball come off of his hand. That spiral is like a bullet. I mean, and he can change speed, he can change arm angles. He's bigger than people think. People think like he's 6'4", 150 pounds or something ridiculous. His lower body is built up now. He is still thin up top. Forget all this stuff you're hearing about, well, you're going to have durability in the NFL, you're going to be able to take big hits. If Josh Allen takes the wrong hit to his lower body, it's going to be a problem. Jayden Daniels is going to be fine from a body type perspective. And he can make any throw you need. And I can tell you this, he doesn't live outside of structure. He wants to play in structure. He's the best quarterback in college football in structure. But he can burn you outside of structure with his ability to run like no one has ever seen. That's why, for me, when you're taking both of these guys, I'm putting him slightly ahead of him right now, and that's the guy who I'd go with.
The other fascinating thing that I think we have to remember is that within these buildings, there's usually a general consensus on all the quarterbacks.
Right.
Between the owner, the GM, and the head coach and the coaching staff, personnel departments. It's very rare that everybody is like, that is the guy. Some people might like Jaden. Some people might like Caleb. Some people might like Drake Maye. And what I find fascinating is when draft day comes, whose voice ends up being the most important? Most people assume it's going to be the GM. That is not always the case. So I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say is this. Look, you know what? Before you can really definitively, especially when the guys are stacked this closely, that you can really kind of differentiate them, you have to be near them.
Right.
You have to be up close and personal to them. Like last year when I was around CJ and when I was around Bryce, that was it for me. I liked CJ anyway, but when I saw him, it kind of just crystallized it. These 3 workouts that I went to, it crystallized it for me. Although I will say this, Drake Maye has got an absolute bazooka for an arm. That film doesn't do it any justice. That's why you need to see these guys in person.
Drake May's got a little Josh Allen in him, doesn't he? I mean, in a lot of different ways.
No question.
Which very, well, you know what? I've got so much time for this today. Should I take a break and we'll come back with Field? I just don't want to get us behind the clock. We will come back with much more with Yates. Again, his mock is up for Field. Yates will call it playing the field as you see his top 10 in his current mock. Let's start with this. At the wide receiver position, why Marvin Harrison over Malik Neighbors at number 4? Yates.
Yeah, Greeny, it's nip and tuck, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the most pro-ready prospect in the entire class. Big, powerful, smooth, outstanding body control. 28 receiving touchdowns over the past 2 seasons, the most in all of FBS. I think he's the best wide receiver prior to the catch in the entire NFL draft. But if Malik Neighbors ends up going ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., I won't be totally surprised.
I'm coming to you on that one later this hour, Lewis. Meanwhile, at the Patriots at 3, you have them taking Drake Maye at number 3. A lot of people wondering whether they should trade out of that spot. Why do they go with the QB?
Because you have an opportunity here. You cannot get rid of the opportunity to take a kid who could become your 10-year starting quarterback. Now, they must work hard to develop Drake Maye. This must be a slow play for Drake Maye in New England. There's a reason why the team signed Jacoby Brissett. This team is bereft of weapons around him, but Drake Maye has way too much upside to pass on at pick number 3.
And that brings us then to the 4th quarterback in your mock, and that's J.J. McCarthy, whose stock has been skyrocketing. Why do you have him a top 5 pick?
Yeah, well, the Minnesota Vikings seem to be lurking right now after they made that trade with the Houston Texans. You think about the situation, the fit, it would be an ideal fit with Kevin O'Connell in that offense. And, of course, has shades of that Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree. Beyond that, 2 excellent wide receivers, a terrific tight end, and 2 great offensive tackles. J.J. McCarthy could be the Vikings starting quarterback in Week 1 and thrive as well for a team that wants to get back into the playoffs next year, Greeny.
I've been fascinated, Lewis, watching J.J. McCarthy's stock rise so fast and so much since the last game was played. Not a game has been played since we were talking about him, maybe late first round. Now, all of a sudden, could you see a world in which he challenges Drake Maye to be the 3rd quarterback off the board?
Sure, because all it takes is one. And quite honestly, look, Greeny, I think what happens is a lot of times in our world, we kind of catch up to what is being discussed within the NFL world all during the fall anyway. There are people who liked J.J. McCarthy all year long. So now you're just starting to get wind of it as the conversation really starts to heat up. People love the fact that he played for Coach Harbaugh. He was a winner. He has a lot of starts underneath his belt. They love his athleticism. They love when his number was called, he delivered. No, the offense wasn't built around him. This was not a gun-centric, throw the football 45-time centric type of team that was built outside in. It was built inside out. It's an offensive line running game, play-action passing game type of team. But when they asked him to make some throws, he made some of the best, most accurate pinpoint throws in all structures, whether it be in the pocket, outside the pocket, rolling left, rolling right. That Nebraska game right there, he made a throw rolling left in the red zone for a touchdown in the back of the end zone that if it was Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, we'd be going, oh my God, he's the next Patrick Mahomes. But he makes it and people go, but it's against Nebraska. So it's like, see, what's happening is people are picking and choosing what they want to like about this young man. But I'll tell you what, his tape is legit. And I think now we're just catching wind of what people have been saying about him all fall.
Let's talk about the trades, Kmart. I mean, because it's Minnesota, it's Denver, it's the Raiders, it's the Giants.
Yes.
What are we hearing?
So it's, for me, when I think about J.J. McCarthy, it's not a question of will he be a top 5 pick. He will be. And it's a question of which spot within the top 5 he goes. Because talking to sources up until last night, I've heard the Patriots, Minnesota, and the Giants are all interested in, they're all expected to take a quarterback, but they are interested in him. So now it becomes really fascinating because the Giants are at 6. But Minnesota's been on the phone. They're trying to move up. We know that they're going to target somebody, and I think they want J.J. McCarthy as well. So if you are the Patriots, you mentioned Jacoby Brissett being there. Yeah, I could see in a world where they had said, you know, we've got Jacoby, let's trade back and build up for the next quarterback. But if people in that building, like J.J. McCarthy, you don't want the Giants to get him. You don't want the Vikings to get him. You don't want to move out of 3. And if you're the Giants, you're at 6. Are you going to be able to move up? Can the Vikings move up? Because I don't think they have a second. Like some of their mid-round picks, they're kind of missing some. So I don't know if they're going to be able to move up to the point where they can get ahead of some of these needy teams. And also the Raiders are a fascinating one.
Yeah, you know, the whole debate about, especially when you're talking, when it's centered around the Giants, centered around the Patriots, about do they trade back, build around a future? It's like, well, okay, let's just put it this way. Do you know that there's going to be a future franchise, decades-long quarterback available next year?
Yeah.
Do you know that there's even going to be? You never pass on this chance, even if it means sitting him, putting him on ice for a minute, simply because of the fact that, you don't think he's ready. 2, you don't think you have the infrastructure around him. But you don't pass on guys like this. And people aren't going to pass on JJ. You're right. They're not going to pass on Drake. They're not going to pass on Jaden. There's going to be a lot of jockeying. It's just a matter of who do people prefer? And that's the thing. It's so subjective here. There are teams, no question, that will like J.J. McCarthy's athleticism. They will like the fact that he played in a program that did nothing but win, that he made big-time throws when he needed to. And they're going to love the fact that this offseason and at his pro day, whether you agree with this or not, that the guy was lights out. They're going to love it. Drake Maye, look, there's obviously the conversation around him is that, look, he could really stand to sit for a year. But I'm telling you, if you were at his pro day and you watch this young man and you look at the work that he is putting in, you're going to be enamored with what he brings to the table. And I'll tell you this. Look, you saw what Josh Allen did.
Yeah.
You saw how Josh Allen made the strides once he got to the NFL. The amount of development that has gone into improving quarterback mechanics, accuracy, and efficiency is otherworldly right now. So do not discount Drake Maye starting right away.
Well, and the guy who did that with Josh Allen was Brian Daboll, which is why I love the idea of the Giants finding a way to get Drake Maye, play one more season of Daniel Jones, and then let Maye take over. Very quickly, Yates, for those who've not seen your mock draft, how many quarterbacks do you have going in round 1?
5 in total, including 5 in the top 12, Greeny. So we've talked about 4 of them. I guess I'll leave the last one out there for a surprise, but he might have gone to a school that wears colors that happen to mirror my suit I have on right now.